Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by early in the day again. Basically, I got some corrections to make to my video yesterday. But while I waffle, I thought we'd have a look at this. This is Bialara Memoria Donald Yamada. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And in a very short space of time, it's a colour changer, which for me is for the better. This is the first bloom opened. The colour on the lip. Recent one. Colour on the lip. Not even unfurled properly yet. So there's an awful lot of cream and then it fades to pink, just leaving the cream on the very tip. Anyway, this one seems to, I think it's probably because I staked it, so I altered its aspect. But the ones that are opening sort of upright, the top sepal seems to want to go back to where it was. If you look at this one, the petals and sepals are even because it's hanging down. But anyway, right, my attempt at making K-lite. Now this is a very unusual set of circumstances because the words I used for the maths were total rubbish. You can't add up percentages. That doesn't work. That's mathematically just wrong. But in principle, the idea was right. I just used the wrong words. What I should have been doing really is, like, when I made up the feed, forget the bits of paper on the table, because that was just wrong, basically. The idea behind it was okay, just the words were wrong. So when I actually mixed up the feed, and I started off with, like I said, the amount of water was irrelevant. It was what I was putting in it was important. And the water didn't change. You know, so obviously the more you put in, the higher the TDS gets. And you are accumulating. And that's the bit I said wrong, because I was using the percentage values to accumulate. You can't do that. What I should have been doing is like parts per million. So I started off with my MSU formula, you know, that had the 13% of nitrogen. Now, if I just altered the words to 13 parts per million, which would have been incorrect as a true value, but would have made more sense when I added the calcium nitrate in and added in more nitrogen. Now, what I made the mistake of doing was adding the percentages together. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. It's a percentage, yeah. What you want is an absolute value. And, you know, like I said, if I'd said 13 parts per million and I've added in 18 parts per million, you can see the nitrogen going up. So the words were totally wrong. Now, this is a very strange concept, but the result that I ended up with was actually what I wanted. I just said it wrong. So what I did was altered the balance, and I altered it in such a way that it was relatively close to the K-lite. The K-lite has left the States. The tracking information shows it as being going overseas, I think is the expression. And it started off with USPS, so United States Post Office, and it should end up, when it eventually gets to our sunny shores over here in the UK, it will be passed to the Royal Mail. So it will be in pretty good hands once it gets here. Unfortunately, it does still have to go through customs. And according to information I have got, lots of people think, oh, there's too many parcels, they can't check them all. Well, apparently they do. But it's a matter of, I suspect that the initial check is nothing more than a scan. You know, they're looking for electrical wiring and things that, you know, things that don't look like what it says on the tin, sort of stuff. Anyway, we shall see. But it's on its way, so all good stuff. And quite honestly, because it's on its way and it's expected sort of during next week sometime, I probably won't feed anymore at the moment. I might just put in a very low level of MSU with some added calcium nitrate and added Epsom salts so that the orchids get some food, because the last thing the pots had was a good flush, thorough flush, so they shouldn't have any feed available to them at the moment. And the idea being that any stored up nutrients that they've got, they should be using up because they're not getting any more. So if there is any excess potassium stored within the plant that's messing up the use of the other stored elements, hopefully it'll get used up. That's the theory. Anyway, this crept up on us basically because I was mucking about with feed levels and stuff like that, which a lot of people get very fed up with very quickly. We missed this as a new bloom, if you see what I mean. It's a rebloom, it's not a first time bloomer. I think when I actually, yes, I was going to say, when I bought this, it must have been in bloom. I wouldn't have bought it via its name, I'd have bought it via the blooms. Now they are large, colourful, shades that match well together, patterning, everything. I like it. We can do without this droopy sepal, but in its natural form, which seems to be more hanging down, it does open up flat. But but even if you look at that, this bloom is actually upside down because the lip's here. Well, it should be down here, shouldn't it? So they're opening up all over the place at the moment, but that could be just as a result of staking it after the buds have, you know, progressed quite a way. We haven't got anything else new open. We will have new stuff to come. The radiata up there will actually be in bloom in the not too distant future. Very fragrant, that one. Very fragrant. But the fragrance at the moment doesn't seem to be showing too much on some of the blooms. I mean, this zygo never had much fragrance anyway. I believe it's a hybrid. It's a zygopetalum crossed with something else. So it's not a true zygo. But yeah, I mean, all the Miltonias over here, their buds are pushing on, their spikes are pushing on, so we'll have a good show there. And the one that I split up into four small units, basically, a back bulb and a new growth. I've taken the flower spikes off of those. I don't want them to bloom. I want them to produce nice, good, strong bulbs with a backup bulb so that when next year's growth grows, it'll be strong and then we get a good blooming. Well, that's a theory anyway. The other thing that's looking good is this Masdevallia over here. And this is, the blooms seem to last quite a long time, which is good. And it just keeps throwing up more. So we like that. We like that a lot. Anyway, my wafflings about the trying to make a version of K-lite to tide me over until the real thing arrives. As I said, the actual thing that I ended up with to water my plants with was actually pretty sound. Somebody actually sat down and worked that out. You know, by doing it properly. You know, in other words, if you added this amount as a TDS increase, then what you've actually done to the actual nitrogen and a complete analysis, you know, there's NPK, calcium and magnesium. This is what I started with. If you increase the TDS by this using calcium nitrate, then this would be your new NPK, calcium, magnesium, and the amount of Epsom salts you added in would have done this to it. And the result I actually ended up with was not bad. Calcium's still a bit high though, but yeah, it seems odd that when your maths is totally wrong, but the result's actually what you wanted is a strange concept. Anyway, the real stuff should be here soon, and then we'll get on and just try that out. Low feed frequently. You know, using this concept of getting the P and the K down to next to nothing relative to the other elements, and we'll see what that does for a while. I mean, you know, we've lost half the growing season, so it's not the best time of year to start changing a feed to see results, but we'll have to see what we come up with. One thing that's not really catered for is the difference between a vigorous growing plant and a very slow growing species that never grows fast. Not even in its perfect natural state does it grow fast. It's just a very slow growing plant. And obviously a very slow growing plant is not going to require anywhere near as much nutrients as a vigorous plant that, you know, puts on, you know, if you think like a cymbidium, I know most of those are terrestrial, but just as a principle, you know, that's got to put up, you know, a dozen leaves on a bulb that are 3 foot long. That's going to take a few nutrients compared with, say, a miniature dendrobium that puts up 1 cane a year that's 3 inches long, you know. So there we go. And yeah, it's a difficult thing, feeding, because I mean I sort of thought, I've looked at a lot of pictures of wild orchids, you know, what orchids in the wild. Now okay, I've never seen tropical orchids growing in the wild because I've never been to those places, and probably never will. It's a bit too expensive, and in some cases damn right dangerous. Anyway, there's still bandits in the hills, you know. But yeah, I mean, I've seen pictures of a lovely healthy dendrobium with masses of pendulous blooms hanging down, and it's near the end of a branch that's hanging out from the tree. So what runoff is that going to get then? On the end of a branch that hasn't got any branches above it. How much runoff is that going to get? How much nutrient can that plant possibly get in that position? And yet it's blooming its head off. It's obviously happy. So this concept of feeding low, it's just got to be the way to go, isn't it? We shall see. Anyway, trials will start as soon as the stuff arrives, and I mean, Patricia is adamant that since she started using it, which is, you know, she's a few years ahead of me, the sheer number of growths that she was getting, actual new growths starting out on the plants, you know, greatly increased, including growths coming out of back bulbs and older parts of the plant that you wouldn't dream of happening normally. So she's pretty adamant that it's the right way to go, and that's what I call practical experience. That's somebody who's done it and got the t-shirt, so it makes sense to me. And you know, we'll see how we go anyway. See you next time. Bye for now.